Well, welcome. Tonight we're going to talk about one of the jewels in Milford, the Claflin Hills Symphony Orchestra. But rather than talk only about the symphonies, and it'd be too easy to get tied up with holiday pops coming up, we could spend the whole show just on the traditions of holiday pops. We've been asked, and we want to talk about what is involved in keeping an orchestra going because it's getting tougher and tougher. Um, well, let's start with an introduction.
Good evening, Al. Nice to be here again. Paul Surapine, founding executive and artistic director at Claflin Hill. And thanks for having us back on the show.
How many years now?
Well, we just finished our 25th anniversary season last spring, and we just launched the 26th season. We're calling it On to the Next 25. November 8th was the season opener. We had talked about that in the previous
Yeah.
show, and it was spectacular. I mean, we did the Dvorak New World Symphony, which had been on the program that we had to cancel last year in the midst of the anniversary season due to a
Finance.
fiscal crisis. Kind of like the government shutting down for a month, and that's what we did. We shut down for a month. But in opening this new season and looking forward into the next 25, I thought it'd be nice first to finish up business from the previous 25 and bring out the Dvorak New World Symphony, which is like one of the most popular and beloved symphonies written for the orchestra in the entire repertoire. And I know a lot of people were disappointed last year when we had to cancel that concert, and so the orchestra was just unbelievable in that week. I mean, no one could have done the Dvorak better than they did on that night. It was just unbelievable. Plus, we had Sashko Murato, our principal oboist, who performed the Strauss oboe concerto that night, and there was a really beautiful backstory behind that. It had been her lifelong dream to someday perform that piece. Um, Her father in Japan had been an oboist. She was actually performing that night, reading the part, the music that was her father's.
Oh, wow.
That as a young man, he had studied with one of the greatest oboists of the time, Heinz Holliger, a Swiss oboist, and he had studied with him. And so she was reading her father's music with his notations from when he had studied it. So it was a beautiful night. The audience was just ecstatic and inspired, and so was the orchestra.
But the Dvorak, isn't that, I mean, it's a challenge, but the expectations have got to be so high that you got to be almost perfect to
Yeah,
meet.
because everybody knows it. Yeah, it is. And I mean, just like when you do Beethoven Fifth,
Yeah.
I mean, you
The
better
ninth, the
be
fifth.
good because everybody knows how it's supposed to sound. And I have, you know, subscribers and supporters in our audience at this point who ask me before these concerts, about certain things. How, I had a guy calling me the week before asking about the tempos in the Dvorak and how he likes to hear it. And I said, well, I'm kind of going by Dvorak's original markings, so I hope you're going to like it. And he came up to me after and said, yeah, it was a grand slam. I mean, but, and it's just the orchestra consistently comes to a higher level with every concert. And that part of it is inspiring. All of the musicians in the orchestra and the audience um, give me a renewed inspiration every time we get together to put together the next concert. We just did a chamber music concert over at Apple Tree Arts in Grafton this past weekend. We featured Sierra Laurie. She's a soprano. She had performed at the season finale as part of Carmina Burana. She was amazing in Carmina Burana. It was like the
But
type of
that's another
singer.
one that is so familiar.
Exactly.
Wasn't that the first one you did?
And that was, yes, that was the kickoff to the original the first
25
concert
years ago.
25 years ago, right? And when I met Sierra as part of the solo contingent for Carmina, she was immediately just so amazing. I mean, you could listen to her and watch her sing the phone book if, that's what she was doing, and you would have your jaw on the floor. And I had asked her to put together a chamber music program, and that was um, the same level of ecstasy. And plus, she has a backstory. I mean, she quit singing during the pandemic. When she came to us to do Carmina, she had just returned to performing
Oh,
again
wow.
just months before that. So I didn't know that part of it. But she took time off during the pandemic to re examine how she felt about her art and her career. She was in a bad place, so she just stopped. And then she kind of got back into it in the last year. And when she got the call to be a soloist with us, an orchestra she had never heard of, and she's living in Maine now. And she came down, and after the concert, she came up to me and said, "This was so amazing. I will come do anything with you again. Just please call me. I want to do anything with this orchestra and with this organization."
And don't take it wrong, but when you think of an orchestra in Milford, BSO doesn't come to mind, but
Right.
till you come to the concert.
And I see that every time we have a concert, because there's always going to be somebody who's new to the orchestra coming as a substitute player, and one of the members of the orchestra can't make this week, so they, help find somebody to replace them, and it maybe is somebody they know from other orchestras, and they say, "Okay, I'll take the job," and then they show up, and after the first rehearsal, I mean, during the Dvorak that that week, we had a lot of subs, new people. The looks on their faces during the rehearsals were just like pure joy. They're playing and they're coming up to me after and they're saying, you play the Dvorak over and over, you play it all the time. He said, this one guy said, you know, we tend to forget what an amazing piece of music it really is. And this orchestra is just so fun to play with. I'm having a great time. Thank you so
So is
much.
it concert number 3 that is the one for the orchestra? Because you always had a fun one, a Christmas one, but you always had one that was
Well,
challenging,
right. The February one is always kind of the big
technical.
super steroid technical orchestral showpiece. This season in February, we're going to do something totally new and innovative. It's going to be a symphonic winds concert with percussion. The strings are going to stay home on that one.
Oh, wow.
Um, there's a lot of great music for symphonic wind ensemble, and a lot of our audience members um, constantly come up to me and tell me how much fun they have watching the concerts and especially watching the percussion guys and some of the wind players because they have a very muscular and energized.
Well, I always felt bad for them thinking they must be driving around in a semi-truck
Yes,
with everything they carry.
yes,
And when my daughters decided to play an instrument, Lexi was the flute, the piccolo. I was very, very pleased. Emily was the
yes.
violin.
A piccolo is very good. You don't even need to help drive her to school. I mean,
That was it.
there was a point where I was in junior high school and also, besides clarinet, went to school with a tenor sax some days, and my dad had to drive me to school because it was just so big I couldn't walk to school
Well,
carrying.
you just look at the percussion instruments, because it's not like even if you got a big cello or something, how many different pieces that they're going to be carrying around.
I mean, just the timpani guy alone has to have a van that can fit 4 large kettle drums in it. Then there's, the xylophone and the marimba, the mallet instruments. There's the chime set. I mean, most of the stuff resides through the season at town hall now because the percussion equipment that we use actually was gifted to the orchestra about 10 years ago by our original
Oh,
timpanist,
wow.
Jim Ciabra. When he retired from playing and from everything, he called me up and said, I have a house full of like top quality instruments, and I'd like to donate it all to Claflin Hill so that your guys,
That's a
who were
substantial,
all his buddies,
yeah, but I mean,
yeah,
that's
it
gotta be
was
a
like a 30,000 plus level kind of
wow.
donation of goods, and, you know, irreplaceable in
Well,
some
the
respects.
percussionist must love the fact that he can get in his little Toyota Corolla for once and drive to
And
the
show up
concert.
with his drumsticks, yeah. Other than that, I mean, yeah. So that's, we're going to do some amazing symphonic wind uh, pieces written by people like Vincent Persichetti and Stravinsky,
Stravinsky, I
and
saw.
you know, there's all sorts of things that the mainstream composers also turn their attention at different times to symphonic music without strings, and we've done lots of pieces on programs that featured only our string section, which is gorgeous. But this time around, they're going to get the night off, and we're going to.
But somehow, no angle isn't going to seem right.
Yeah, it's just a one-time thing. We'll see how it goes. Maybe the next year it's going to be all strings and no winds or percussion on that February concert. It's an experiment. Plus, in light of the economics of the orchestra in the last couple of years, it kind of helps the budget. You know, we could do a symphonic wind piece on a symphony concert along with other symphony pieces, but from a business perspective, that doesn't really make sense that half of your program you're going to rehearse during the week, you're paying for musicians that are sitting out in the hall while we work on a piece that only involves the other half of the
Well, from
orchestra.
a music and an appreciation point of view, the Claflin Hill reputation of putting on two concerts for one was always amazing.
Yeah,
But from a business point of view,
it can sometimes break the bank, which is kind of what happened last year, which brought about, that hiccup financially in our 20th anniversary season,
how big is the core
25th
orchestra?
anniversary. Hmm?
How big is the core orchestra?
It's the core orchestra is between 50 and 60 musicians that
Wow.
our contract offer goes out to every season. That basically a contingent of 35 to 40 string players in the various sections, and another 30 or so wind players and percussion. Um, so you base your season contract offer to the musicians on, the standard Beethoven size orchestra, and then certain concerts are going to need extra players. So you have to add them in and contract them for specific concerts standalone. The concert in February last year involved over 70 musicians. And we needed to schedule an extra rehearsal because it was a very challenging program. So it was the largest payroll in the history of the
So is it
Claflin
still
Hill
about
Symphony.
$25,000 to put on a concert, or is it
It's
more?
it's nearing 30,000 as a normal budget consideration for each concert. Sometimes it's slightly under. I'm trying to keep it from going over this year. Um, and that doesn't take into account, the venue, rental fees that we have to pay, music rental costs,
Licenses.
licenses, things like that. If we're doing pieces of music that we need to rent from a
Now,
publishing house.
Claflin Hill is not a Milford government organization, but do you get the benefit of using Town Hall?
Yes, we do. I mean, we have a great relationship with our town municipal government. We pay a standard venue rental fee um, for use of the hall. It's affordable for us. We have to pay for the custodian's
Yeah.
hours on nights of our
Well, that makes sense
rehearsals, and
because
yes, and I don't think that we should have some kind of special, I don't know, under the table
well, not
relationship.
under the table, but if you think about it, we have sports teams that are Milford sports teams. And if you ever really looked at what it cost to maintain Pheno Field for the Legion,
Right.
and you don't charge them the full cost because it's
Right.
for the benefit of Milford. I would say Claflin Hill is kind of like the same as the Legion, where there's a
Exactly. And I think, like I said, we have a very nice working relationship with, the people that run Milford Town Hall. And it's nice. I'd like to codify that someday into something for the future because, you never know if someday people running our municipal government that aren't, I don't know, steeped in the heritage of Milford and our culture, and they wonder why is this organization giving concerts here? We should be charging them through the nose. I mean, you could always come up against that someday. Whereas, in a way, Claflin Hill, as you've constantly said, it's a cultural asset and gem to our community, and we're also an organization that's dedicated to keeping alive the heritage that was such an important part of Milford all the way through, its
well, you think
existence.
about
I
the
mean, there's been
history of
great music in
Boots
Milford.
Mazzulli,
Exactly.
all the musicians that made Milford a little more special.
Right. It's been a signature part of the essence of Milford for well over 150 years. And not only that, that town hall where our orchestra is in residence, saw performances in the early 20th century from the likes of the greatest Italian opera tenors like Enzio Pinza and Enrico Caruso, and the Vienna Boys Choir once sang there. And,
Well, even
Boots,
your
in
family.
Boots, Missouri area, you had Stan
I
Kenton
remember
Band.
the concert with the three tenors. That was absolutely outstanding.
Right. And so we're keeping that alive, or we're striving to, you know.
To me, it's part of being a thriving community. We have football. There's no way that the football tickets cover the expense of football, but we have it as part of the community. We have soccer. We have all these sports events, the Legion baseball. It's a history. And Claflin Hill fits right in there with the heritage that we want to keep.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, Claflin Hill as an orchestra itself, number one, as an orchestra in its 25 years, has achieved a level of performance that's equal to any major orchestra in any city in New England. I mean, I'm not saying that as a braggadocio thing. I
No,
mean,
but
it really
Paul,
is.
the first time I was invited to go to the Symphony, I'm thinking, okay, it's Milford. It'll be okay.
Right.
It'll be okay. And then I got there, and it was like, wow.
Yeah, and it's it's gone way beyond that since then. Um, I'm amazed constantly when I watch the TV rebroadcast here on Milford TV of our orchestra that they broadcast. I mean, I'm amazed by it, and I was standing in front of it when we did it, and I'm still even more amazed. Um, but the other thing about it is it's so much more than just that orchestra that gives some concerts. It's really become this vehicle of community that brings people together. The when we do all the concerts in the parks, family night at the bandstand in the summer, and when Claflin Hill Symphony Summer Winds visits other communities, we're bringing people out of their homes to to mingle with each other and to be part of a community and to really be inspired to um, what we always took for granted, really.
Well, when we redid the town park, the concert series was, to me, the reason we expanded the stage. Because I don't see a lot of other events going on there.
Yeah, I mean the expansion or the renovation of the bandstand, I think, is going on this year. They hadn't done it before they reopened the town park.
No, but we had a budget for
Right.
it.
Yes, and actually, I loved, this past summer was the first time we were back after the reopening of Town Park, and I loved it. I think it's going to be
Well,
great.
it's something,
There were so many people doing all the other things in the park, and yet they were also participants in the concert going on over there at the bandstand because they were there, playing pickleball or exercising at the new exercise courtyard over there.
but
Um,
it's something,
and a concert's going on as they're doing that.
to me, it's like when we do 4th of July at the dump, or the Plains Park. You know, I've done the 4th of July in Boston. Once I said, I want to go try this. And it was impressive. But I wasn't trying to sneak a hot dog from the Lions before my wife caught me eating it.
Right.
I wasn't walking around looking at my neighbors. And you think about it, it's not something that, by the time you're done, you're spending $500-600 on a hotel room, on meals. Not everybody has the ability to just write off that kind of money. And candidly, I enjoyed myself less going to Boston than I did going to Plains
Well, we haven't done that
in a lot
since
of years.
2009, and this coming year is the 250th birthday of America. I've actually had a few conversations with people already, and it's something that's on the top of my mind to work on bringing the full orchestra to Plains Park next summer for the fireworks with the kind of pops Americana 4th of July concert like you see at the Esplanade, but ours will be even better because we'll play right through the fireworks with it. But all it takes is money.
Yeah, but it'll be better because you'll play to neighbors,
Exactly.
family.
No, I mean, this is something that we should be able to do in this community. If we can't take advantage of the fact that we have a world-class symphony orchestra, and it should be funded enough to actually perform in our town's 4th of July celebration, then we should start.
Well,
It's not like we're not a going concern
For
as a
many
community
years,
at
we
that
had
point.
the debate at the finance committee level about the fireworks, because back then it was $18,000-20,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we had members of the finance committee who had legitimate arguments saying, you could put that money towards school. You could put that money towards other things in Milford. And my argument was always, yeah, but it's part of Milford. We got a $160 million budget. We got to be able to sneak out 20 grand.
For fireworks on your nation's birthday, it would seem that. I mean, that's a discussion for people at your level of finance committee to have. I mean, really, a symphony orchestra is funded in about three ways. The business plan of Claflin Hill is very simple, and I kind of evolved it as I went along because I didn't even know what a business plan was, and there's nothing written down that says it's our business plan. But
Well, walk us through the four aspects of how you fund Claflin
all
Hill.
right, well, starting out, the first and number one thing that made it possible in the beginning was corporate sponsorships. Um, Given that every concert for a symphony orchestra back then cost, in the neighborhood of 20 and now 30,
Yeah, but today you got to come up with what, $120,000 a year
just for the concerts.
for the concerts?
Yeah, well, let's say 150,000 for 5
150.
concerts, okay? Um, Back in the day, we had a strong business, corporate, resident community here in Milford. And in our heyday, our business sponsorships amounted to almost 100,000 a year. That's pretty good. Um, Next, you have private donations. Um, Back in the day, our private donations were about half of the corporate sponsorships. As things went along, the private donations started to grow until they were equal to that of the business sponsorships. Then you have ticket sales. Now, nobody really is going to fund an orchestra on ticket sales. If we did, the ticket sales would be the price, a ticket
That
would be the price that
BSO,
you're used to getting at BSO.
yeah.
And by the way, they don't really need to sell the tickets at that price either because they have corporate sponsors that count their donations in the 7 or 8 figures. So, they don't bother with $5,000 sponsorships. I mean, they start at 1 million. So
That would be nice.
that would be nice. And also, I've always been really committed to the fact that culture should be affordable for everybody. And we really want that to be, that nobody is kept from coming to a Claflin Hill Symphony concert just because the ticket price is so ridiculous. Now,
Well, for what I paid for a season ticket to Claflin Hill, I couldn't get one
exactly,
BSO.
right. I mean, yes, that's
I
very
mean,
true.
That's average.
Even today, our season ticket price is less than some orchestra's single ticket cost
Yeah.
for one night. Um, on the upside, since our little fiscal crisis last year, we had a great response from our private donor and audience base. Our our private donations last year topped 150,000 for the first time ever. Many uh, people that were donors to Claflin Hill last year added to their commitment because they realized suddenly that maybe they needed to be even a little more generous to this orchestra. That the the value of it and the the cost of what it takes
So
to
your call
produce
for
this.
help, because I remember
Well,
saying
we're always calling for help.
no, but this was extraordinary, saying
Yes,
we really need more, was answered by the local people.
yes, and kind of actually, the inspiration came actually from somebody who was actually new to Claflin Hill at the time, who had bought a season ticket because they were friends with a member of the orchestra. They live in Charlestown, and contacted me the day we canceled the concert and asked if it would help if they donated $10,000. It was yes, and we turned that into a campaign that raised 50,000 by the end of the season. So, but really, that level of support needs to be maintained now at that level. I mean, that's kind of the level an orchestra of this quality and this benefit level really kind of needs. And at the same time, our season ticket revenue this year went up 60% this season.
Fantastic.
It was. I mean, it's good. It's good. It's like, why wouldn't corporate sponsors in our community want to be allied and be seen supporting something that obviously at this point, 25 years in, has acceded to this ascended to this level of value by the general community
But
around it.
now, are most of the corporate sponsors local, or, because I would think Milford Federal Savings Bank,
Yes,
they sponsor everything in Milford.
yes,
But
we have, and Milford Federal was the original, the first
The first
Claflin
one.
Hill sponsor. And yes, they remain today as the sponsor of Holiday Pops at the same level they were, you know, 25 years ago.
But now we have new banks, national banks. Do they come in with the same
No,
commitment?
no. And banks that are bought up, local banks that are then
Well, I'm
bought up
saying
by
the Home
larger.
National, the National Bank went away or got incorporated or
Yeah, we
acquired.
haven't, it's hard to reach the new people. Um, there's, there's tech corporate companies around our area. They're expanding their footprint in our town, but they're owned out of state. They're owned out of country
Out of
in some
country,
ways.
some of them.
That's right, you know. American Power, American National Power, was originally an Enron plant, right? They used to be a $15,000 a year sponsor. They're owned by a French company now. They're a $1,000 a year sponsor. And that's all they're given to support the community with. You know, it's like supposedly beyond their
How
power.
do you even reach out? I mean, when the corporate headquarters was Milford, you knew people and they could introduce you to the senior
Exactly.
people.
Yeah.
But if it's Tokyo, how do you even start to reach out to them?
If you find out, let me know. No, seriously. I mean, there's another one up there on Fortune Boulevard that once was a 5,000. You know, and that's not huge, but it was nice. They're owned in Japan now. And not only that, the decision making people for our region are now in Ohio. And I've spent a whole morning trying to figure out how to contact somebody at their Milford campus. You know, I was on the website, I'm calling numbers, I'm following prompts, I'm trying to find an email to email. I did that. I don't get any response. There's a big one up there on, the top of Bear Hill that we all know. Used to be a major sponsor of Claflin Hill. Same thing. There's pardon me, the age of technology and online communication has made it much easier to be impersonal and removed from the local community. Um,
But
not
also,
only that,
you had champions, Tom Wesley.
exactly, yes,
He could get you to visit and meet the senior people who made decisions.
which I often did, and it was wonderful. And this is how you built a community. You know, as a member of Rotary Club, I would see fellow other business leaders at Rotary meetings, and we didn't do business at Rotary, but we knew that after the meeting, we're probably going to go aside and have a
But
conversation.
I always thought of the Rotary, the business is business, making the relationships, and then picking up after the meetings and taking advantage of those relationships.
Well, that is, and by the same token, there was a time when companies that were going to build in our town or to expand and wanted, special considerations from your municipal
Yeah.
governments, right? But the expectation was always that in return, they would become involved in the local community.
That was the old quid pro quo. You help out our kids, you help out our community.
Yeah, and in that way, that's a good word. I mean, that's how we are a community. I mean, I operate the same way in my personal life. I mean, if somebody is a supporter of Claflin Hill, they are going to get all of my business from whatever business they do, whether it's a restaurant or a package store or a car repair place.
Well, I have to
or
admit, to this day, I'm 69 years old. I still use Milford Fed as
Mhm.
my bank. When I
Yeah.
moved overseas, I took out a Barclays account in Paris because I needed to have local checks. But the bulk of my banking was still done in Milford Fed.
And seeing we've been talking about Milford Fed, I'd like to take a moment. I should also insert some of the other major sponsors that are still um, supporting the cause. Home Field Credit Union that moved a branch into Milford about 10 years ago, and they supported us in all of our performances over in Grafton before that. I mean, they're one of our top major sponsors. Medway Oil and Propane, who, if you're listening to me on my FM on Monday mornings, these are names that you're hearing me announce constantly all the time. Gallo Moving and Storage, Tony Gallo, he's a major Symphony supporter. He doesn't often come to a concert, but he realizes this is a great thing for the community and appreciates all the hard work that goes into to putting this on for the community. Unibank, locally based. All these companies I'm mentioning are locally based businesses, but there's fewer and fewer locally based businesses. And I live in fear that, you know, someday some of these local businesses are going to like hit a wall where they can't support things in the community as much as they used to. I mean, we're about to approach holiday pops. It's going to be sold out. I mean, we're sitting here talking the week of Thanksgiving on a Monday night. Thanksgiving's on Thursday. Holiday pops may be sold out by Thursday morning. That's something else. It's the first time that it'll be sold out that
Have you
early.
ever thought of
And
doing
yet,
a dual holiday pops?
yes, I have, but I need more sponsorships. I need to cover the nut of an additional performance before I start selling tickets to it,
Oh,
because
okay.
then you're working for the door, and you might as well open a bar and put on
Yeah,
a
I guess it's hard.
karaoke act.
It's hard to think. A third is corporate sponsorships, so that's what 50 grand a year you need.
More than I'm getting.
A third is donations.
Yeah, private donations, ticket sales. I mean, here's another aspect, which is private foundations, um, charitable foundations. There's not a whole lot of those in our immediate region here in the greater Milford area. The Hopedale Foundation comes to mind, right? They are a long time and
They've been there
consistent.
forever.
They've been, yes, and they make a grant every year in support of Claflin Hill. Last year they gave doubled down on it in honor of our anniversary season, which was very nice. Um, but we need more of those, because your typical charitable foundation grant will probably be like $5,000, and that's about as much as you can expect from any one of those, because they're trying to support and help many different organizations in the community. Now, you know, 25 years ago, $5,000 was huge to Claflin Hill.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at it, $5,000 is going to pay for 10 musicians on one concert. That's 10 musicians out of 60 for one concert. I got to find money for the other 50, and then I got to do that 4 more times. So, this is kind of the challenge we're facing. As we set off into Thanksgiving holiday and then comes holiday pops, um, I'm actually down right now almost $10,000 in business sponsorships this year over last year, right now for holiday pops. So that's a bit of a challenge.
How does
Set
that?
that against the fact that it's almost going to be sold out and season ticket sales were up 60%. How do we how do we reach out to these businesses? Almost like shame them into returning to supporting our local community. I'm happy to entertain any suggestions.
Yeah, it's got to be tough because you can't increase ticket sales if you're sold out.
No, once you sell the seat. Also, I mean, we have like a lot of our private donations come from what we call chair endowments. It's like $1,000, put your name on a chair. There again, that's been the same for the past like 25 years. $1,000 25 years ago almost paid for one musician for the season. Now it pays for, you know, one musician for 2 concerts. I'm not sure you can ask people to give more in this economy. They're given the the solution to that was to get more chair sponsorships, but again, there's only so many chairs in the orchestra. Once you've maxed that out and sold them all, what do? Resell, double sell them? Double sell ticket sales? It is corporate sponsorships, and we as a community need to be um, involved in that part. I mean, we make choices in life, in our daily lives. Where do we bank? Where do we shop? What businesses do we patronize? Are they supporting the community? Or are we doing the easy thing? Are we buying our our gifts or whatever toys from Amazon? That doesn't donate anything to the local community, as opposed to finding a local business and and going there with your business and patronizing them because they're the ones that could buy a program book ad in the symphony orchestra's season program book or become a sponsor.
Yeah, that's surprising. A company like Amazon doesn't help out the local community.
Any big box company like that, they're never going to have the people that can make those kind of decisions locally, then they're not going to have the budget to give on that level. I mean, they don't look at it that way. They've got your business and they've made it so that you have no choice except to go to them. So they kind of got you over the barrel. And in a way, it was a self-inflicted wound.
Yeah, because I remember places like Target used to give scholarships at Milford High. Because
Yeah.
I was amazed that my daughter got $1,000 from Target. You know, and
When they came to town, they gave us 10,000 a couple of years in a row. But now it's different. They're here. They've been here.
yeah,
The people in charge there now don't even know there's a symphony orchestra. They don't work here. I mean, they work here, but they
they
don't
don't
live
live
here.
here.
Um, here's another example. Um, we were all up in arms a number of years ago about the prospect of cannabis grow houses popping up in Milford. And somebody wanted to build that business. And the citizens for Milford were all like up in arms against it and campaigning not to let that happen. Well, the person who was the one, who was going to start this business threw some money to them, and all of a sudden that was okay. And also, they gave Claflin Hill $2,500. I met the man. It was like good. He's going to become part of the community. What happened? He did that one more year. Then he sold the company.
Sold out.
He sold out. He took his money, his investment. I don't know whoever that person is now went off and has probably got another business in another state. The people that bought Sarah Naturals are not here. And again, nobody knows how to reach anybody there at any longer. So, you know, we we got away from that kind of um, formula of, as you said, quid pro quo. Um, and I don't know if we can get back to it, but maybe we can. I mean, it's like I said, it's up to us as a citizenry to actually start. Number one, you know, as the radio station's mantra is, always think local, do business local, support your neighbors, support your local businesses and entities, and also, you know, start making noise about why isn't other companies doing this? And it's not just Claflin Hill that's suffering. I mean, all of the pillars of our region, the Rotary Club, which existed with all these corporations and different bank entities, that would pay for a member of their staff to become a Rotarian and support we'd have 30 members. They all were representatives of different companies. That kind of went away. They don't want to put that outlay into paying for one of their employees to become a Rotary member now. And if the Rotary's doing a project, well, then they kick in, their donation in terms of that. I mean, these are all the things that we kind of had our eye not on the ball for a few years and let things get away from us.
But you brought up the holiday, the 4th of July concert that we used to have. That used to be cool. I mean, we went for the fireworks, and let's face it, we really went to be with our neighbors and families. But it was nice to have the orchestra playing there. Have you
Yes.
have you approached the town government?
No, not directly right now. I mean, I've had a couple conversations with a few people, and that's all I
'Cause I
can
was gonna
say right
say,
now.
we've had,
I'm reticent to do that because I'm kind of my mindset is that it's one thing if the town government's paying for fireworks. I mean that's like as you said one time in a meeting at the finance committee, that's kind of like canceling Christmas
yeah.
if you can't afford to do that. When one gets into things like outlays for orchestra concerts, I don't know, at least you open up people starting to complain, well, I don't like that. Why are we spending our tax dollars? I don't know. Culture, just like the hospital, is something that comes of the community banding together, either through
What would it
private or
cost
business.
to have the orchestra at the 4th of July?
In the
Round
neighborhood of
numbers.
$30,000, 35. I mean, you know, it's a big concert. It involves 50 to 60 musicians. They're going to have a couple rehearsals for that. It's not something we just show up and improv. I mean, this is a professional symphony orchestra. Um, it's it's a big date. You have to be able to compensate musicians at an appropriate level because there's a lot of
Yeah,
competition.
it's not March 4th.
Right. There's nothing going on. I'll take that gig for less money. I mean, it has to be, you know, competitive with what all the other orchestras are compensating musicians at. Also, it's going to require a fairly big expense on sound reinforcement in Plains Park to broadcast the sound of the symphony orchestra out to that entire expanse. I mean, you can't show up with a little DJ setup and a mic or two. I mean, this has to be professionally done. That's a number of
Can't
thousands
get
of
Ronnie
dollars
Oja
right
to
there.
chip in like he does for every
Yes,
dance.
which is a fine thing.
That's
But when you're
wonderful.
doing a symphony orchestra,
But when you're talking about Plains Park versus the high school cafeteria,
exactly.
you need a little more power.
No, and again, I mean, this is something we should, as a community, be able to do. Somewhere out there, there's got to be somebody who wants to be standing next to Claflin Hill Symphony and saying, yes, I believe in the culture of this community. I believe in heritage. I believe in America. And I believe that we should be able to do this. And I know there's somebody out there. I just haven't met
Well,
them
it
yet.
took us years to get over, back then it was $18,000 of fireworks, where we had to vote on it every single year to finally get it to where, well, of course we're doing it and putting it into the town budget. Maybe someday will come where we add in a symphony to go along with it.
Well, you know, I wouldn't refuse it. But I don't want to get into politics with that sort of thing, because again, this isn't a political organization. And, when you start bringing those kind of things up to town meeting, then there's always somebody that's going to complain, I'm sure. And
Well, I mean, let's face it, no matter what you do, there's people who complain, why did we put a swimming pool into the high school? My kids don't swim. Why do we put a swimming pool? Today, it's one of the gems of Milford. There's towns that come from near and far.
right,
So there's certain things you do for the betterment of the community. The football stadium for soccer and football. There's people who said, why are we spending back then $4 million? Why are we putting a softball field in? Why are we doing it? It's all those little pieces. And to me, the music has always been the redheaded stepchild when it comes to budget, but you have to take care of those kids just like you do all the other kids and the people the same way.
yeah, and that's actually a very good point that brings up an entire other um, parallel aspect of the whole conversation, which is unfortunately, when we are talking about budgets and outlays, somehow music and music education in our schools always ends up somewhere down on the list of sort of like intramural frills, as
Right.
opposed to being, it should actually be one of the most essential elements of education. You know, and I've kind of advocated for this recently a number of times in different conversations on the radio and in podcasts that we do, is that students in your educational program should actually have music as a requirement all the way through their years of study, because it's a it's a an exercise in mental development, along with not just learning to play an instrument or something, but the activity of studying music in whatever form. You know, learning to play an instrument or sing in chorus uh, activates abstract brain function in a way that makes them even much better students in all the other disciplines that they're going to study all the way through high school, science and math and
But
literature.
what you're saying is profound because if you think about it, not every child will go into a STEM career, science, technology, but we have courses throughout their school life to teach them mathematics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Why isn't music the same level?
You know, I'll give you a little story. Years ago, many years ago, many years ago, before I was here, before I had ever heard of Milford, before I got married, I was still in Connecticut, living at home and studying and practicing the clarinet. And I was teaching out in the Berkshires a couple days a week. And I got a call from a guy one day who was in charge of music lessons at a Rudolf Steiner Waldorf school out in the Berkshires. It was in Hawthorne Valley, New York, right over the border from the Berkshires. And Rudolf Steiner was an Austrian philosopher educator going back to like 1900 and had developed a new philosophy of education for children, kind of like Montessori schools, if people have heard of those. And it was very organic and nurturing, and things like children started first grade with a main class teacher and stayed with that teacher all the way through eighth grade. The class stayed together as a unit. Um, they studied various subjects for greater lengths of time. You know, like say they were, in eighth grade, they were going to take up the study of geometry. They would do it for 2.5 hours every morning for like 6 weeks, and they would cover more ground, and it would be a lasting education in that subject that would carry them through life. Um, every single classroom had their own class orchestra. They started in kindergarten playing on little recorders or singing together. And then when the time came that they were old enough to start instrumental lessons, a violin, string instruments, wind instruments, they were kind of just told, okay, which one do you want to play? And one's a if you want to play. And this gentleman, his name was Harry Kretz. He had a funny little Austrian accent. And he called me up on the phone and he said, I was wondering if you would like to come and teach clarinet and saxophone lessons at our school at Hawthorne Valley. And I said, yeah, sure, I'm available on Tuesday and Wednesdays. I'm out that way. How many students do you have? And he said, well, right now, none. I said, well, okay, maybe not so much. He said, how many would you like to have to start? I said, 6 would be good. And he said, okay, I will call you back next week. I will get the students. And he called families in the school community there. And these people were very committed to education. I mean, some of them had moved to this little valley just to put their kids in this school because they were looking for a real education. And, you know, he called a bunch of families up and said, we have just engaged a very fine clarinet instructor, and now is the time for your little Ursula to begin the study of the clarinet. Here's the number to call to rent an instrument. Lessons begin next week. And I started there. Every student, every classroom, they had a little orchestra. I mean, and it was, it wasn't like they were symphony orchestras, and it wasn't like any of them were going to become professional musicians. But I'll tell you, the level of engagement and of inquisitiveness and learning in the students I taught there, and I taught there for about 10 years, was amazing. And it's because it wasn't a sort of nice little after-school activity. It was an essential element of the development of the student, going all the way from,
Well,
kindergarten
the
age all the way through
discipline,
high
the-
school.
I remember when we went to the first, I don't know what they called it, all-school concert at Milford High.
Mm-hmm.
First time, she'll kill me for this, but first time Emily practiced her violin, it sounded like somebody pulling the tail off small farm animals.
I have experienced that.
And then you're at the gym and you're watching the little kids with the and then by the time they hit the seniors, it was amazing. Now again, there are kids, so this is Broadway level performance no matter what in my mind, because
Right.
there are kids, but being objective, it was great to see the progress that Mr. Moffat, Nadine Pomeroy, and that whole crowd had brought the kids along.
Historically, Milford has always had a very fine and comprehensive music department. Those guys, Billy Moffat, Mike Crawley, Nadine, who came in first as a student teacher, I think, in the system, and then got the job. Jill Baudet. I mean, they've been there a long time. My sons were part of that program. My son Zachary, I actually sometimes wondered if he studied anything else at Milford High School in the way of like academics, because his report card was mostly seemed like music courses. But it's a constant battle to keep that alive. And like I said, you got to flip the actual starting premise. It's not a frill.
Right.
It's not fluff. It's not if we can afford it. It's like you have to start thinking, if you want good quality students that graduate at that point, 12 years later, and are fully rounded, intelligent, sentient human beings ready to go off in the world and continue their education, if you want our students to compete on the world stage against the students from other countries, where, by the way, they do have that kind of mindset. It's not a frill.
Well,
I guess we're out of time.
we're
already.
out of time. There's always.
More to talk about.
Come spring, we'll talk about the new concerts and how you've sold those out. But in all seriousness, if you haven't experienced Claflin Hill, please think about it. You don't have to go to the BSO to get top-notch quality music. You can get it right at Milford Town Hall. And I want to thank the people who've joined us tonight. Thank you for coming, Paul.
I'm people now.
You.
It's been great. I always love talking to you, Al, and I hope
And
that
as always,
we'll see you at a symphony concert soon again.
as always, may tomorrow be a better day than tonight. God bless, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just